Right, hello guys, it's Sunday 25th of June 2017. Kind of a couple of minutes late, but it's 8 o'clock, 2 past 8 today. And today, obviously I don't expect many people to join me, but I hope that some will. Wanted to talk about probably one of the hardest subjects one can talk in the modern days. Obviously, this is like I said, it's religious terrorism, racism, and political correctness. The failure of political correctness. And obviously, over the time, I've already had people tell me, look, get off your high horse, you can't talk about stuff like this, Obviously, like many would say, just talk about the simple stuff, something we can laugh about, don't touch the serious subjects. And the thing is this is one of the more serious subjects which you can touch, and it's not something that's like, can be covered, to be honest, in 1 hour. It's something which takes, few hours, few subjects, few topics, and you can go into each part of this particular situation, and each one of them really takes like, ages and ages if you start delving into them. But obviously one of the biggest subjects, one of the biggest questions people ask me, what makes you qualified to talk about this? So I guess before I talk about this subject, more like, let's say I've covered the top of the subject, I think probably a bit of my own history makes sense. Is the fact that I did grow up in Ukraine in the 90s, so I'm obviously not born in UK. So I'm hardly a member of white privilege, at least not, in the way they mean to about the middle to high class people who born and grew up in UK mean. So obviously, no, it doesn't cut it. 90s in Ukraine was, those who have been through there will probably tell you that, the crime was rampant, the economy was falling apart. I mean, if I would say that at the age of 12, when walking into my block of flats, which did not have any lights on the staircases, I did have a little knife open and ready and willing to use it. So you could obviously understand that it was not the nicest place to live, Overall, it wasn't that bad, I guess, but obviously walking into a dark alley, you were half expecting that somebody's gonna try to rob you or just hit you on the back of your head with a pipe and leave you dying there while they pick up whatever they can get. So again, growing up in the low level area probably means that I can slightly understand how people feel that live in those areas. And the fact that I moved to UK while I was still only 17. So again, I was an immigrant, so I have an experience of immigrant communities and the communities that are pulled out, at least whether voluntarily or not voluntarily, pulling out from the general society around them. Significant to say that, in the last few years, I don't think I've made a lot of effort to just pull myself from the community around me and just communicate with only people who are from ex-Soviet Union or just Ukrainians. Actually, in a way, I've made far less effort to keep in touch with them than would be we start keeping in touch with people around me. But obviously, it means that I have a bit of experience in all of those. And obviously discussing this particular subject today, we're probably not going to be able to get away from discussing the situation which happened about the police officer being, justified by the court that he's been right in his shooting of the black guy in US while he was telling him that he had a gun. It's like, again, this situation will probably appear, but obviously, there's a lot of things to cover that. But to start this conversation, I would like to speak about something which is like two cultures. two words really. One of them is goy, which I'm not quite sure if it's exactly the right way to pronounce it. The other one is gaujo or gaujo. Again, I might be not exactly 100% in pronouncing it right, but those are the two words which come from two cultures, two nations. One of them is, both of those words, they mean one thing: an outsider, the one who is not one of us, the one who is not part of our culture, and the one we can cheat and treat whichever way we can. So it's not somebody we treat equal to us. He's not equal to us, so we can cheat him. We can do whatever you want. Now, both of these things come from two cultures. It's Jews, which is goy, and gaujo, which is gypsies. Now, over the years, over the history of Europe, those ended up being two of the most persecuted nations in Europe. Okay? Most of the most persecuted nationalities in Europe, and yet these were the two nationalities which insisted of separating themselves from those living around them, and people were happy to oblige. They just, over the time, they said, well, if you don't want to be part of us, then you can't be part of us. They ended up being pushed away. And the pinnacle of this hatred of Europeans to those who were separate from them, who did not want to be part of the society, ended up being the persecution of Jews and Gypsies by the Nazi Germany. And I have to remind to people that Nazis were the left party, National Socialist Party, and yet they came to the power on the kind of, one of the promises was, we're gonna get rid of Jews, we're gonna get rid of Gypsies in our country. You can see that, not being part of the society, is a bad thing. And this is why I think, the modern political correctness went really wrong. Like, really done a really bad favor to everybody else around them. Because for things I'm saying here today, I will be claimed, many people will say that I'm a racist, I already mentioned the white privilege, a few other things. And the problem is that a lot of things I'm going to talk about today are actually, the politically correct will not want to talk about. And then those things grow into bigger problems. So one of the things which is like, again, it obviously grows. It's kind of not one of the things that happens like over time, but for a very long time, the politically correct will go on. Well, if people come to us, we have to accept them as they are. They don't have to change for us, we have to change for them. If it was black people, they were always saying, black people are the victims, it's never their fault, whatever goes wrong, it's not their responsibility, they're not responsible for their actions. I mean, for crying out loud, who would say to people, like grown up people, look, you're not responsible for your own actions? It's like for me, it's the stupidest thing you can try and persuade anybody into. It's like, no, whatever happens, you're not responsible. It's like, is it really so? The worst thing they could ever say to anybody is, you're not responsible. Well, are they? I don't want to believe, from my experience of meeting black people, having black friends, having friends from Muslim communities, having friends from immigrant background, having friends from British background. Somehow I don't believe that black people are incapable of taking responsibility. Okay, fair enough, maybe 100 years ago there was some bias there, you know, even 50 years ago there was some bias about this in States. I don't think it was so much in Britain, at least not from what I can understand from talking to British people. There was some bias. Obviously there's always some bias against somebody who's not exactly like you, but it existed. But in my time in UK, you know, it was very hard to get away from the fact that the bias was always, well, if there's, you know, just don't be any bias. You know, there wasn't like any pressure on black people to prove themselves. You know, black, white, it doesn't matter. I've spent in UK 17 years and it was like, no, but you speak to anybody who's politically correct, he will say, well, it's never your fault, you know. The 10 black kids knifing each other, another 10 black kids during every week in UK. No, that's not black people's fault. I guess it's the white people who put the knives into the kids' hands, you know. 9,000 black guys, you know, getting killed by another bunch of black guys in US. No, black people are not responsible about this, you know. The black community is never responsible. It's the white people who give them the guns. Really? Now, is this the kind of what we're talking about here? Because, I mean, you know, from what you look at this and you kind of go like, wherever the white political correctness comes in, you know, people from middle to higher class, most of whom who never really had been down at the bottom, you know, they telling everyone, no, it's not your fault. No, Muslims coming in and there's like, you know, few issues in their cultures which are not exactly fitting within the culture around them, you know, and they say, oh no, you don't pay attention to our culture. You can continue as you are. You don't have to fit in with our culture. And obviously when these Muslims come out into the usual world and somebody says, well, dude, you know, I understand. I respect your culture. I like it. It's very great when it is in Middle East. I'm happy to go and see it there. When you come onto these streets, I would like you to respect my culture slightly more. You know, when people, politically correct people, tell we should not celebrate Christmas in school in case we offend Muslims. When you hear something like this, it's insanity. Okay, and obviously you hear all this, and all the politically correct people will go like about, like, black people are not responsible. There was like hundreds of years of slavery. It's like, okay, great, there was 100 years of slavery. You know, but it's been 100 years ago, more than 100 years ago, you know. Maybe it's about time we get our shit together. Maybe it's about time we start talking about the issues in the communities. And maybe start looking at why these issues appear. Why is it that they are there? How can we deal with those issues? How can we stop, like I say, 7 to 10 black kids dying from a knife wound or from just being knifed, stop them from being knifed every week in UK? Was it caused by that? I mean, recently I've heard some talk about this on the radio, and like, for example, one of the reasons, which was named by people who used to be black gangsters, now who went to jail and then came out and said, look, you know, it's been a mistake. You know, they said, look, you know, it's a fatherless society in here. You know, okay, great. Why is it the fatherless society? Well, it's probably because when the kids grow up, you know, you look at the areas where it happens. It's like one of the most impoverished areas in UK. I look around. I lived for a little while in London and been around London. You know, been in Southampton where you get similar. You know, I've been to not Bristol, the other one, Birmingham, yeah, for a little while. And I've seen this kind of what I call 7 by 7 ghettos, right? So you get 7 blocks by 7 blocks, and you get mostly black people living there, and most of them are good people. I mean, say most of them are good people, but there are issues in these areas. And then you get 7 by 7 blocks where it's mostly like Muslim people, right? Mostly like what you say Middle Eastern Muslims. And like I say, most of the people living there are good people. I mean, this is what we're saying, is we're not saying that they're all bad people, but there are obviously issues like forced marriages in the Muslim community. There is issues that arise of gang culture in black communities, you know. For some reason, they all think they're a gangster because they're black, you know. It's like, dude, you know, why do you want to be a gangster just because you're black? Why don't you look at the black scientists that are out there, you know? Why don't you look, well, there's recently just that movie that came out about the black women scientists, you know, that were supporting the NASA drive, you know. It's like, it's coming out. Yes, it takes time, but they make films. Why don't you look at people like this? Why is it that so many black kids, especially these days, things that they either got to be a rapper, an athlete, or a gangster? Not exactly the best choice of profession. It was like, you know, why don't they want to be, you know, so much more? Why don't these are the symbols they see in front of themselves? It's like the politically correct say, oh yeah, but you know, they start talking about hairstyles and stuff like this. Why don't we look at the underlying symbols? Why is it that we tell into them that, look, you're not responsible for your own future? Okay? Maybe, and it would be a good thing that to bring in some of those rapper singers, you know. What is it, in the words of, I believe it's a 50 Cent, which is a rap singer, who goes on about the rappers that rap about gangsters when they sang in a choir. You know, maybe it's a good point to start at. It's like very few of the big on rappers driving their big cars have really been gangsters, you know. Very few of them probably ever had a gun pointed in their face or a knife stuck to their back because somebody wanted their wallet or whatever, you know. I say there are some of them who quite have grown up in this lifestyle, but so many of them didn't, you know. They grew up in a slightly rough neighborhood, yes. And they think that, look, you know, I'm a tough guy now. It's like, but the problems of the neighborhoods don't go away, you know. So there's so much big subject, so sometimes I'm finding it hard to cover it all. So looking at all this, you kind of think, what's the main problem? At least the one I see is the fact that, again, big push comes from, for both, I say, gangster lifestyle and black community. It's my point of view. I could be wrong, but obviously it leads to other problems. And many young guys being pushed from the Muslim community, you know, when people say, he was such a nice guy, I would not understand why would he go and attack tens of people with a knife or try to blow people up, you know. Why would he want to drive a car into the bunch of pedestrians for no reason at all? It's obviously, you know, but we could see that it didn't happen overnight, you know. These guys did not grow up wanting to become gangsters. Yes, the having fatherless community is a problem for black community, but we can't say about this about Muslim community. So is there something which drives the guys to those extremes? Is there something which drives, because obviously you get the white guys who go into extremes, into the, like, you know, extreme, like, nationalist movements as well, you know. The white guys, obviously, they don't go into trying to kill each other or try to kill everybody else, but there is still a very big movement of white guys who go on and say, look, you know, there's problems in our community, and obviously the politically correct tell them, look, yeah, you're just white privilege. It's like, it doesn't matter that you grew up on pretty much the neighboring estate to the black guy, you know, who has problems we don't want to talk about, but because you grew up on the estate, which, you know, mostly white, you have white privilege. And it's like, it doesn't matter. So why is it so many of those guys are being pushed into those extremes? You know, it's like, why is it that the police in US, when they see a black guy and he says he's got a gun, they prefer to shoot him first and ask questions later? What has created this culture? I mean, you know, I know there will be like anybody will say, oh yeah, the police in America, they are just out to kill black guys. It's like, seriously? Is there like some secret society in American or British police which says, well, we're gonna fuck the black guys up? There's a special oath we're gonna give, you know. We're not gonna give the oath of serve and protect. We're gonna give an oath to go out and fuck up the black guys. I don't think so. I seriously don't think so. Maybe the fact that so many black guys that's been killed by black guys, and so many people that telling black guys, look, you're not responsible, so it's okay for you to carry a gun and shoot wherever the fuck you want, is the fact that the police officers take them with a lot more caution than they should be taken for. Because obviously the people who do the bad things, they are the minority. But because they do so much damage, you know, but why is it that this minority is pushed to that edge? You know, that's what we've got to talk about. Like I said, we'll probably talk about the situation. And I did tell to people in writing and whichever that the police officer who did the shooting was rightfully justified by the court system. Why, from where I look at this point of view, is the videos that they've shown is where 3 times he said to the guy, don't reach for it, don't pull it out, do not pull it out, and then he shoots. Now, obviously we can see that the officer is scared, you know, he's like panicking. Why is he reaching for that? He just told me he's got a gun. Why is he? What's gonna happen? Is he one of those crazy guys who doesn't care? What is he doing? Now, from my point of view, from the training I received when I went for my bouncer license, which I got in 2002, I believe, or 2003. Where was it? Yeah, 2002, summer 2002. I received a bouncer license from Bournemouth Borough Council. And one of the things they said is never kind of don't tell people, like, you always stand to the people with your hands up front, and you don't tell them, don't do this, because they start, you know, especially if it's you're trying to calm them down, where they're in a bit of a panicky mode, you know. I think that's why they told me that, but you don't tell them, don't do this, because they just freeze up and they continue doing what they were doing, because this is how their brain already wired. They already went for this. You have to be standing there with your friends and say, look, calm down, do this. So, for example, okay, wait, put your hands on the steering wheel. Right? If he's done that, I would say that that situation could have been avoided. There would have not been any shooting. There would be, because the guy would go, okay, what do I do then? You know, okay, put my wheels on the steering wheel, then yes, fine, I understand what exactly he wants me to do. Just don't do this. So the police officer has treated the situation wrong, but I think this is kind of the problem we have overall, not just in US, but in UK as well. Not enough police. And the best training the police gets in US over time is how to shoot well. Dealing with situations like these, they probably have been taught in a police academy while they were studying, but let's be honest, 5-6 years down the line, this training seems to be kind of slowly fading away, and you don't get into this situation every time. You know, you don't get into a situation when somebody tells you, look, I've got a gun. You know, I'm slightly laughing about it, but you don't get, you know, it's like, in everyday life, you know, if you walk down the street, you're not going to be getting into situations like, oh, look, I've got a knife, I'm going to rob you, you know. It's like, it happens once, twice in our lifetime, if it happens at all. You know, so again, the police in UK and in US, not enough police, we all know that. And there should be enough police not to just patrol the streets, but so that the police every year can go and do the training. Not just have a written test, which they think in US that's what they have, like every couple of years they have a written test they have to pass. No, go in and have a proper training at handling the situations like this. But enough police so that they can go and do that training without leaving the streets empty. UK and US and many other countries, I think it's one of the first things, you know. Similar thing I talk about, like US situation where they just give a carry license. Should this guy have been trained properly and, you know, for example, had this training to repeat himself every like couple of years as well, probably might have been a good idea to teach him, do not keep your permit somewhere near the gun. Keep it somewhere where you can have easy access to it, so that if the police stops you, you pull it out, they don't think that you're going for a gun. If you've been stopped by a car and you're going to tell them obviously that you carry a gun license, take it out before the police officer gets to you. Have it in your hands. Give it to the police officer. And again, that would have saved the guy's life. So inadequate training on both sides. You know, should there have been a proper training? Should there have been a bit more trust? Because obviously, you know, there is so much information coming through that, look, you know, the police is out there to kill you. It's like the police is out there to fuck your life over. No, they're not. I don't believe that. You know, I was growing up in Ukraine in the 90s, and the police had some questionable methods. They did, and you know, and maybe a few people have got, no, not maybe, but definitely a few people got to spend some time in jail because the police forced them to admit things they didn't do when they caught them on something they did. But overall, I don't remember police officers trying to come up to me walking down the street and pick a fight on me or do anything like this, you know. And again, we grew up in a reasonably poor area, so, you know, the police were not the nicest people in there. You know, we were kind of scared of getting caught by the police, because once you got caught on something, they would force you to admit that you have done another bunch of things which you never did. You never even heard about them. Sometimes you were not even old enough to do them, but they'd make you do it. They'd make you sign the papers. So, but I say, I don't think that the police in UK or US are out there to get people for doing something they haven't done. Okay, but the political correctness people, it's so easy just to kind of say, yeah, I'm this proud, yeah, we just support you, you know. It's like just flashing how cool you are, how good you are, what a nice person you are, you know, how politically correct you are. It's just, the political correctness just took away any conversations around those subjects. Okay, so when somebody like me talks about this, you know, if people watch this video, I fully expect that they will call me a racist and many other things. You know, guys, please do. You know, if you calling me a racist, but actually discussing these subjects and making sure that people hear about this stops at least one kid from stabbing another one, I'll take it any day, please. Okay, but you get this, guys, so you get these kids growing up with this pressure from the political correctness. Look, you know, you don't have to pay attention to other cultures. It's only your culture that matters in our countries, you know. It's not your responsibility not to bring a knife out, you know. It's not your responsibility not to bring a gun out. And then obviously you get the side where this kid's growing up. And obviously, like I say, you go to 7x7 ghettos, and to be honest, to any estate or anywhere else. And I say my experience from coming into England, and my mother married an English guy, Welsh. He's Welsh, his brother's English. Don't ask me why. And he was telling me, look, when I was like, came out of school, I got a job, and I got married. And from the job I had as a sales assistant, I could have afforded, I could afford the flat for us to live in, and we could support ourselves. My wife didn't have to go to work. She just, she got pregnant, and we had kids. And then I worked my way through, and I could afford the life. Obviously it was a bit hard, but I could afford all that. And now we look at these guys growing up. Looking at these like younger guys, younger generation growing up these days in these states. And what they see is, even if the family has a father, even a father and a mother working these days, quite often just about covers their rent. Okay? That's what they see. Okay, they see the black community, they see this, they hear this story about their grandfathers or their fathers being young, being able to take care about their family when in the 80s or beginning of the 90s, but now they grow up and they're not stupid. Again, I will not, whatever people say about this IQ tests are bullshit, because I've seen people who couldn't pass an IQ test but would wipe a fucking floor with me or anybody else I've known because they were that smart. It's just IQ test. They test certain things. But those guys, they could analyze and talk about things. It's just they didn't see how that picture, working with that picture, makes any sense. Quite often I don't. And I'm not that stupid either. So these guys are smart, especially the younger generation, which are growing up with access to tons of information, hitting them every day, every hour, through their phones, through their, Facebook, through the internet. They get more information rammed into them every day than I did when I was growing up. When I was growing up, I could go fishing on the river and not worry about a phone call coming in, or like an update on Facebook, or some news coming through some other means. These guys, they got the information and they learn to work with it, so they're not stupid. And what these guys see around them is that their fathers that could take care about the families in the 90s, like for example, now they works 2 jobs, their mother has to work as well, and they still can't make ends meet. You get the guys which are growing up in the Muslim community. Yes, he's got a father and he's got 2 brothers and 3 sisters, and their parents are still able to kind of take care about them. But then he goes on into his 7x7 ghetto. He gets a job of a sales assistant, and the best he can afford is a set of new clothes, let alone moving out of their parents' place. So he's forced to live with his parents. The black kid sees that if he doesn't have a father, his mother working 2 jobs and still having to get extra money from the council, and they still can hardly make ends meet. And then this black kid walks out and he sees these gangsters selling drugs on the corners. And he sees that, look, if he gets a job as a sales assistant, he ain't get nowhere. He ain't getting a new car. He ain't getting to move out of his mother's place. And then he can go be a gangster. Right. Here's everybody rapping about it to him about it being a gangster. And then you have this politically correct people coming in. Oh, don't worry, it's not your fault. It's the white people who make you be a gangster. Easy way out. Some kids who grow up in a slightly better off family, you look at them and you get a better off family and you see them aiming to move after their fathers. But so many growing up without their fathers, seeing all the struggles, and then there's an easy way out. Just steal drugs. right? Obviously, if he gets caught, he gets 5 years in jail, but you know, he's gonna come out, he's gonna do drugs again. You know, as the life, he can afford the car now, he can afford his own little place, you know. What will he choose? What will you choose, you know? So if he's, well, I don't know, lucky or not lucky to have kids, he might make different choices. But so far he doesn't have kids. He doesn't have different choices, you know. He grows up getting a part-time job with his mother not being able to support them anyway, you know, and people treating him, giving him what, 4 quid an hour, or go sell some dough to someone and get 50 quid a night for 2 hours walk. What will he choose? It's not his responsibility, it's the white people's fault. In a way, it's all our fault, you know, not just white, but all of us. Obviously, he doesn't see the rich black people, because obviously the top 10% of the black people, who are same rich as the top 10% of white people, they don't appear to the places like this. He sees the gangsters. What happens with the Muslim kid? I mean, I say, he lives in his community. So he learns, look, you know, if you follow the religion, it's a religious community, you know, takes quite a bit of conviction to follow your religion. And then he goes on, and, you know, some of the kids, they go to university and, you know, they make it through. But he didn't get to go to university for whichever reason. Or he did get to go to university, and he came out from university having this wonderful degree, tried finding a job and didn't get it. Right? He goes back to being a shop assistant. And you know, not every graduate comes out getting a job. Getting a permanent role takes sometimes more than a year. Some people just give up on their dreams, you know. I've known some people, white women, we're not talking white man, white women, you know, that should be, you know, preference, and they wanted to work in IT, and then they gave up because they couldn't find a job after getting a degree. Black kid comes out and he's been told, look, you know, the society is against you. They don't tell him that, look, bruv, it does take a long time to get, you have to make 500 applications before somebody will even listen to you, right? And then they will probably offer you a wage so low that you're gonna have to have a second job to pay for a first one, and that's if you've got 5 years experience. If you don't have 5 years experience, the wage be so low that you're gonna have to have a second job and the third one just to pay for your ability to get the experience. It's the same as working for free. But maybe in 10 years, after you work hard, you will be able to start your own family. You will be able to take care about your kids. Obviously, that's not what he hears other men talking. You know, he listens to older men who say, hey, you know, in your age, I already had 2 kids and I was taking care about them. You know, now they are in college and whatever, you know. You don't get it. Okay? Whether he's a Muslim kid or whether he's you know, a black kid, whether he's a white kid, they still hear the same story, which says to them, hey, you know, in your age, I've been taking care about a family. I had the job as a barman, and I still could take care about my family. He looks at the job as a barman. Hey, good luck trying to take care about yourself on that wage, you know, not staying homeless. Taking care about a family on a barman's wage these days, good luck trying, you know. And these kids say this. And obviously the black kids have an access to this gangster lifestyle. What does the Muslim kid do? He goes to his imam, and if he's lucky, gets the support of the community. But some of those kids get caught up with some rather nasty crowd. Obviously, he doesn't become the extremist over a short period of time. but he will go to the church and he will be applying for the jobs and he will be trying to do all the right things. Or there will be some other group which will be slowly telling him, but you see, they just hate you because you're a Muslim. And then there will be a politically correct group which will be saying, oh, you're just hating Muslims, all of you. You see, the Muslims, they're hating you. They're hating you because they're talking about the forced marriages. They're hating you because it's the issues of the community which are not quite acceptable in ours. Well, forced marriages and genital mutilation is I don't think they're acceptable in our community, full stop, And when we say to the community, you need to change this, you need to change your community to fit with the communities around you. You cannot just close yourself in a 7 blocks by 7 blocks. I mean, honestly, those that get out and they get to do things and then, well, for example, I've known some people who were afraid to tell to their parents who they were dating. However funny it sounds, but they were afraid because one of them was Muslim, the other one was Hindu. They were afraid to tell their parents that they're dating. Because they were afraid that, at the very least of the violence to the very worst, like honor killings. They were afraid of that. I used to go out with an Indian girl. She was afraid to introduce me to her family. Because she was afraid that her older brother is going to try and stab me. Okay, so when I talk about those issues, it's not that I have not experienced them. Obviously not as an extreme as other people. And we obviously say that, look, this is not acceptable in our communities. But then you have the guys who are politically correct and say, yeah, it's your culture. We like multiculturalism. Yes, we like multiculturalism. I like people coming here from different cultures, I'm from Ukraine. Ukraine has got slightly different culture to UK. But on the other hand, there is a certain standards which we accept in this culture. And, stabbing your sister's boyfriend just because he's not a Hindu, probably not the standard that we want to have in here. Many people come here because of the multiculturalism, but then they don't want to leave their issues of their cultures they left behind. They don't want to leave the issues behind. Muslims and Hindus hating each other in India and Pakistan, probably, yeah, okay, you guys have big things, but you're coming here for a new start, so leave that hatred behind. It's a very hard thing to do. But even if you don't like them, at least don't teach your kids to hate them. But this to say, the Muslim kids, I was talking about Muslim kids going to them, and they get influenced by these groups. And then some of them might get bursary to go and study Islam in one of the religious groups in Pakistan or somewhere else, where they get a bit more influenced. Telling to them, look, they hate Islam. See, they hate Islam. They don't teach them about, for example, the fact that Quran specifically states that Muslims should respect Christians and Jews as their brothers in faith. Because we're all people of the book and we're all believe in the same God. No, it doesn't. They don't. They say, no, they're non-believers because they don't think that Muhammad is the only prophet we should follow. When the Muhammad himself has admitted Christ as a prophet, Moses as a prophet, admitted the mother of Christ as a holy woman, respected all over Islam. It was just, the guy was saying, look, I'm the last prophet that God has sent, but obviously I'm trying to teach you how to be loved by God. That's all there is. whatever his teachings were, they, again, they were fit for the time, for the people he was teaching. That's all there is to it. Does this make me a Muslim hater for saying this? I don't think so. But what happens is when this guy comes over and he goes to the schools, the black guy has been pulled into the direction of crime and proving himself as a big man. The Muslim guy gets pulled into religious circles and they drive him to extremism. Because when the monk cultures didn't mix, add up to that the fact that those guys hear those stories about how their fathers used to walk tall by their families. And walking tall is like, I know it was a name of the film as well, I think many years ago, but walking tall by your family, how many men would have stopped the life of crime if they believed that by walking a normal job they could walk tall by their family, that walking even as a store assistant he could still stand by his kids, put the food on the kids' table, put the roof over their heads and some clothes on their back, that he could be a man. How many people would have been stopped from joining the ranks of gangs? Why is it that the gang lifestyle in US have become so increasingly driving in only after the man stopped being able to be man by doing normal jobs? I mean, let's be honest, like, we can blame it on fatherless society, yes, but the kids are not stupid. I don't think that any guy would want to be a gangster because it's just a cool thing to do. No. The guy becomes a gangster because there is other things around it. Like being able to afford the new trainers. Or being able to afford like a roof over your head rather than having to live in your parents' house. How many Muslims would not be looking for a solution in the extreme sides of Islam if they said, look, even getting the basic job would make me a good guy who can stand tall in his surroundings, would make sure that I can take care about the needs of my wife. I know many people don't probably know that, but for example, in Islam, the guy is supposed to be able to take care about all the needs of his wife. Starting from makeup, finishing with the, tampons or whatever else. Right. How many guys would have not gone into those extremes, whether it's theological or whether it's practical extremes, if they could believe that they can stand tall by their families? I mean, I know a guy who recently told me that I should get off my high horse. Probably I deserve it, I don't know. And knowing him, I would say that he will do his best to stand tall, he's not very tall, but he will do his best to stand tall by his child, to take care about his family. Right? I know guys from all different countries, and I've seen how they change when they have their kids and when they can say that, yes, I can take care about my kid. So many guys look at the things that are happening today and they don't believe they can. And as I say, these guys from whichever background, whether it's a white background, whether it's a black background, whether it's a Muslim background, which is obviously not a race, it's a religion, whether it's a Christian background, whether it's a Jewish background, whether it's a Hindu background, the guys, they look around and the kids, they're not stupid, they're growing up, they get all this pressure from like, okay, you have to be politically correct, or something else, and it's like, but they go like, yeah, but what can I do? So You have a black kid who chooses to join the gangs and go stabbing people. Obviously, it doesn't make the police overly, friendly to the black community, because if they go into a black community and they know they are more likely to get shot or more likely to get stabbed than into any other community, they will obviously treat this community with more caution. They will be more aggressive in this community. Why? Because they will know that the response overall, if they're nice, if they're seen as weak, by maybe a minority in that community, by a very aggressive minority, would be to attack them. If the guys that are growing up, so obviously they will treat that minority, that group, with more caution. If the guys going into a Muslim community and Muslims are not keen on reporting, for example, a forced marriage or something like this, because they say, oh, it's part of our culture, we don't care about your culture, or the people around them are not going to treat them nice. Okay, if the political correctness tell to the communities, it's all right to exclude yourself from the bigger community around you and not helping. You can call me a racist, but guys, I've known quite a few people from ex-Soviet Union. I've seen how those communities of people who mostly speak Russian to each other, they grow, they become, it's like I say, I think many Eastern Europeans, they do come from slightly different countries, so despite the fact that we speak Russians, we're still slightly more separated. We don't always belong to the same religion, or we always come from the different countries. But even then, you see people and how they connect, and they end up starting to exclude themselves from the life around them. And the thing is obviously, Eastern Europeans being white, we don't get that kind of treatment of being told, look, it's all right for you to exclude yourself from the culture around you. It's all right for you not to accept the culture which has accepted you. It's all right for you not to change for this culture. It's all right for you not to take that responsibility. Right? And anybody who would have raised the question of why is it that there is 9,000 black guys killed, like Stevie Wonder did just recently I've seen him talking about this, saying, look, saying that Black Lives Matter and then telling them people to go kill themselves is not saving black lives. The Black Lives mattered before that happened. Any black guy or white guy says that, look, there is a problem with this. We have to look into these problems. We have to look, why is it that the white communities are starting to fail as well? What's happening there? Why is it that so many white guys feel that when they mention something like this, they straight away blamed to be racist, and obviously quite often pushed towards the extreme organizations? Why is it that the black guys that mention, for example, the issues of rising criminality, ever more rising criminality in black communities, are treated as the house niggers? Oh, he's the house nigger to the white guys, some rich guy who paid him he's been paid to say that. It's impossible for him to care about the 9,000 guys that died last year. No, he doesn't care about them. He just does. As long as he's not blaming the police, he doesn't care. Let's just blame the police. It's easy to blame people like this. If you're white and you say, look, forced marriages is not a right thing in our society in 21st century, which is strife among communities from Middle East and quite often India, for example, which is not just a Muslim problem. Forced marriages is not something that is acceptable if the people If it's an arranged marriage and both children know what they're getting into, and they talked and they agreed to that, then it's one thing. But if it's a forced marriage, then it's not right. Let's define those things. Let's talk about them. But if I'm a white guy talking about this, I'm a racist. Of course, the arranged marriages have never been part of white history. No, white people never married through the arranged marriages. No, it was always only by love. Yes. Obviously, that's what the people say that never learned history. Okay? But if I talk about something like this, I will be a racist. People will call me a racist. When people talk about the fact that many companies abuse bringing in the immigrants and then hiring them at much lower wage than they would hire others, you're racist, you just hate immigrants. I don't hate immigrants, but I want the people who grew up in this country, unlike me, I grew up in Ukraine, but people who grew up in this country, I want these guys from the black district or from white background, from any, to be able to go get a job and walk tall by their family, because I know this is how it's done. I've lived in the country where people were living on survival wages. I know how it ends, okay? I've been through that, so don't talk to me about white privilege. I've been there where you've been afraid to walk through the fucking streets at 8 o'clock in the evening in the middle of the fucking autumn. Okay, guys, well, I've been where you were running from one lit place to another lit place because you couldn't walk the streets because it was safe, because people could try and rob you in the middle of a fucking day. I don't want that for these guys. I want them to be able to get a job and be able to walk tall. I want them to be able to raise their families. And when we talk about the fact that, bringing in too many immigrants and the companies abusing that fact, paying the minimum wage, paying next to nothing, while, the same people who have shares in those companies driving up the cost of rent to the point where your wage, working like 40 hours a week, is not enough to pay your rent. I mean, obviously, I can't say that I'm that unlucky, but some people are. And then they say, oh yeah, you don't strive enough, you don't work hard enough. How many hours you need to work a week? 80? 90? Or was it 24/7? Was it there's 150 hours a week, 3 hours to sleep? How far more do we need to go? But if you talk about this stuff, I'm a racist. Okay, guys, I'm a racist. I don't choose an easy option of just saying the police is out to kill every black person out there. I don't choose an easy option of virtue signaling by saying, oh, it's just so easy to blame those guys. So it's so virtuous to just choose an easy solution, which the politically correct tend to do. It's like we went from the point where people were fighting for people's rights, but now they're destroying the black people's rights and the Muslim rights and every other right of taking the responsibility. They're not responsible. Are they stupid? No, they're not. They're very clever people. They're some of the nicest people I met. Many of them are way smarter than me. If I can see that taking off the responsibility from them is bad. Let's look at the problems. Say, for me, at this point of time, my overall saying is, look, let's make sure that people all over are in this situation where a person walking can put a roof up over their head. I mean, just to give you an example, where people talk about Black Lives Matter, was it Beyonce that joined the club of Black Lives Matter? And what did she do when she was raising her company to make your fancy clothing line? Did she open her factory in an impoverished black neighborhood of America, hiring the women, the single mothers that live there, and paying them a proper wage? Did she do that? Did she care about black lives enough to give the women the jobs, or men who could? I'm sure there's quite a few men, since we're all, equal now, who wouldn't mind admitting that they do like making clothes. Did she start her business there, paying people a proper wage? Or did she start her business in Thailand, as far as I remember, and paying people something ridiculous as $4 a week or $4 a day? I'm not on the top of my head. I don't think it was the first one. So if the Black Lives Matter to these people so much, why is it they don't do anything to improve them? Why is it that she did not invest her money, a bit of her money? Why did she not say, look, I'm willing to lose some profit, just so that the black lives that matter do actually start to matter, so that they can make the living? I don't know, because I guess I'm just a racist. I guess she's not a racist. She's a proper businesswoman. She really cares about black lives, or any lives for that matter. She pays her employees so little, they would not be able to live in America. They probably would not be able to live in most of the countries in the world, except some shithole where they can't even have probably proper shower in their house, and where they have to drink dirty water just to survive, and she pays them just enough to survive. That's their attitude to any lives. Top 10%, right? Doesn't matter which race they come from, they don't give a shit about their lives. But you guys, people may feel free to call me a racist. They may feel free to call me whatever. Just because I believe that, the fact that people go into extremes is their part of their responsibility, but we can all do something about it. Yeah, like talking to these communities and saying, look, this crime and gun culture needs to stop. What do we need to do to stop that culture? Where can we find the solution? What can we do for it? I may be on my high horse. I don't know, people. Seriously, I may be on my high horse. Maybe this video ain't going to be seen by anyone for I don't know how many years. I don't know. I'm not, as I say, I'm not pretending to know all the answers, but one answer I know is that if we start giving people the basics they need to be able to take care about their family, a lot of those problems might go away. So we can go, if people watch this video and want to ask any more questions, then based on these questions I will obviously try to cover things more in depth. Whether it's about the things I know about Islam, or black communities, maybe people don't like me and they want to tell me off and they want to write something. Guys, please do. I'll be more than happy to answer any of your grievances. But again, you can call me whatever you want, but I say, if you want an argument, if you bring an argument, I'll be more than happy to read everything people say. I will be more than happy to answer people's questions, go a bit more in depth about things. Again, I'm not pretending the knowledge of everything. I know what I know. I could be wrong about things. But what I know is that once people start being able to walk tall by their families through the normal jobs, they don't go into crime and they don't go into extreme religion. This only happens when the poverty happens. And that's when people become very good at finding enemies. We have seen that in Nazi Germany. Trust me. They found their enemies, they found their Jews, they found their gypsies, they found everyone. Right? Are we going to wait for that? Are we going to be so blind in our political correctness until it explodes in our face? Or are we going to start talking and looking for solutions? It's all up to you guys. I say, watch this. I hope somebody watched this. I hope there will be questions. I'll try to give the answers the best I can. There will be a few other subjects I'll talk about online. I will try and put this all on YouTube as well. And obviously I'm going to follow them, people's questions there as well. Okay, for today I'm going to finish. It's been an hour. Say it's not the easiest subject, and to be honest, there's so many things to cover that it's very hard to do it in an hour. It's very hard to do it even in two. It's just an overall coverage of my views. It's not, say, always entirely 100% the way it should be, you know, obviously, but I'll do my best. Okay, you guys have a good night or day or morning whenever you watch this. I hope that I covered at least enough to pass on my basic ideas, but as I say, any questions, I'll be happy to answer them. Alright, have a good one, take care.